Welcome to another episode of Wellness Warriors. Today, I'm really excited to have my friend and fellow colleague, Jenny Hrbacek. Is that right? Is that
It's
pronounced
actually Hrbacek, but
Hrbacek.
anything goes. It's really hard to say. We have the same problem with our last names.
That's
They're both
right.
very beautiful when we say them, say
That's
them
right.
correctly.
Hrbacek. Yes, that's very
Yeah.
pretty.
Yeah.
She's an RN, and she went through her own natural healing journey with breast cancer in 2009. And that was an inspiration for her to create a whole movement, which I really love, about educating people about if they are really cancer-free. As a matter of fact, she's written a book, and you want to show them the new cover?
This is the new cover.
Cancer-Free, Are You Sure? And that is such a provocative and eye-catching title, because we know that traditional medicine will tell people they are quote-unquote cancer-free, send them on their merry way. And, 5-10 years later, they wake up one day and they've got metastasis all over the spine, brain, lungs, and it's a real shock to everybody.
Right.
So I'm really excited to have you here, Jenny. Thanks for taking the time to share your information, your insights.
Sure.
So valuable. I love what you're doing. So tell me a little bit about your personal healing journey and how that led to your movement today.
Right. Well, back in 2009, I went to my yearly OBGYN appointment, and I just went for my yearly checkup. I was always fine. My cholesterol was great. My blood pressure was fine. My labs were fine. But my doctor felt something really deep, kind of on the external side of one of my breasts. She goes, "I think you might have a cyst." So I thought, wow, I've never had a cyst, but I hear people have cysts, so maybe I have one. Turned out that I went to a breast surgeon, and she, did an ultrasound, and she immediately gives me a hug, and she says, "We'll get through this together."
Oh, wow.
Get through this together. And I thought, oh my gosh,
ominous.
what do you mean? What do you mean we're going to get through this together? And she hadn't done anything. And next thing I know, she's doing a biopsy right there. My breast turned purple like an eggplant. So I went home and I told my husband, I said, "Oh my gosh, the doctor thinks I have breast cancer." And he's an attorney, so he's very matter of fact. And he goes, "You don't have the results yet. You don't have it." I said, "When the doctor gives you a hug and says, 'We'll get through this together,' you have a problem."
Right.
So I was miserable for 10 days. So I know the fear. Most people, when they get a cancer diagnosis, they react in several different ways, and they go into that fight and flight mode. And that's what I did, man. I wanted it out by the first doctor that would take it out. Or they get fear, and they're just, and they're paralyzed, or they can do what I call a spiritual bypass, where they think God's just going to heal me. I don't have to do anything. But I always tell people, God gave you a car. It doesn't run unless you start the engine. So, I was all over the place with the standard responses to cancer. Anyway, it turned out to be estrogen, progesterone positive, HER2 negative. And the first thing I asked the doctor when she told me I had this, when the biopsy came back, was, I said, "Well, how long have I had this?" Because I thought that I must have just gotten it in the last year, because remember, the year before and the year before and the year before, I'm fine. And to my shock, they said, "You've had it 7 to 10 years. And that's what really got me started, because I thought, how can we not tell someone they have cancer for 7 to 10 years? Surely there's got to be a way to find this.
Right.
And then I went to a breast cancer support group, and half the women there had a recurrence. And I'm actually being generous on that statistic. There were more than half that had a recurrence, and they were all told they were cancer-free. I was told that I needed a mastectomy because I didn't ever want to deal with breast cancer again. And they showed me beautiful pictures of reconstruction, and said if I did radiation and I ever got another, spot, that they wouldn't be able to do the reconstruction surgery. I look back at the information that I was told, and it just horrifies me, because I made a lot of wrong decisions.
Well, and the average person really doesn't know. And you're, like you say, you're a deer in headlights, and you're presented with all these choices that you have to make right away.
Right.
Because they make you feel like you're going to die tomorrow if you don't follow through with the instructions.
Right.
So all the research that you've done over the years, I mean, it's amazing. Your book, I just really love your book and everything that you presented. So tell us about something relatively new. There's a term called liquid biopsies. And what exactly is that? What does that mean?
Well, there is, because if you think about it, people think that the cancer is the tumor. They can just cut that tumor out and go about their business. And what happens is, that tumor is part of your body. And if it absorbs glucose on a PET scan, surely it has blood flow going into it, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Well, those cells get swept away into the bloodstream and way, way, way before we would ever find a tumor on like a PET CT, because that's a very coarse method of testing, and it can take years for it to show up. But
So let me ask you this: how
uh,
big? What's the minimal size before you can actually start seeing something on a PET scan?
sometimes it's half a centimeter. It depends on how active the tumor is, because see, a cancer tumor is not all cancer cells. There can be healthy cells in there, and actually there's a number, it's a uptake number they give you, and if it's 3 or above, they say it's cancer. If it's less than that, they could call it normal physiological uptake of glucose, but
Hmm.
yet it's an early cancer. So we don't want to wait for those lumps and bumps. And my mission to the world is that we need to take the starting point for cancer and push it back several years, because we think that the only tools to cure cancer or to treat cancer, because we don't have the cure, is chemosurgery and radiation and hormone therapy and some targeted drugs. But if we found it years before they could ever see it on a scan and stick a needle in it and give you a biopsy, guess what? You don't qualify for those chemosurgery and radiation. And we can now do integrative therapies like you teach and you counsel women and you do at your retreats, where we can do natural hormone blockers like aromatin 8 and genistein, and we can take things like modified citrus pectin to keep the inflammation down, and we can heal the body with integrative therapies and never have to use those harsh tools. But we don't give people the chance. We wait and we wait and we wait, and then everyone gets fear. So back to your question, because I needed to lay that foundation, is that we can take a blood sample and we can find things that are in the blood. That the body is very smart. That's how they find allergies. If someone's allergic to peanuts, the body makes antibodies. So the body produces proteins and antibodies against cancer cells, and there's substances in the body that are available to a blood test. And also the circulating tumor cells are available as well, because they get swept away into the bloodstream. And we can take a simple blood test, a simple needle stick in the arm, blood in a tube, and there's many, many ways we can find out that we have cancer years before we would have a major tumor problem. And to me, I think we could take the fear out of cancer tomorrow if doctors started offering these tests early at yearly checkups, even if it's every other year, to say,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you've got a cancer problem. We've got some indicators here. Let's get you in a sauna 3 or 4 times a week. Let's get your blood sugar regulated. Let's put you on some anti-cancer known substances that we know kill cancer stem cells. Like, I have a whole list of them here on my GCC test that are proven to kill cancer stem cells and documented on PubMed. So a simple blood test, and through the blood tests, we can look for the circulating tumor cells or those antibodies. We have a multitude of methods.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those tests.
Okay.
So one of them I know that's relatively new is the IV gene test.
Yes.
What is that? What is that test?
Okay. Now that test is not a circulating tumor test, and it's not an antibody test. It is a test that's looking for a defect on the genome of the cancer cell. And we know that all cancer cells have the same methylation defect. So they draw blood and they can identify how many cells in that blood sample have this defect. Now with this test, it's a little different, because we go back and we think, well, doesn't everyone have cancer? Yes, we're all making mistakes every day, and the immune system gobbles them up, right?
Mm-hmm.
So everyone will usually have a score on the IV gene test. A healthy young person will have a 4 or 5. As we get a little older, we might get up to a 7 or 8 or 9. The test cannot legally diagnose cancer, and they cannot say they're an early detection test, but it is a fabulous tool, because if you get up, let's say breast cancer, you send your blood in and you come back with a 20. The people at IVGene have told me they can most likely do a scan and they will find the tumor at 20. It will be positive. Anything below that, you're in that pre-cancer phase. That is what I am just preaching to everybody. Find it then, before you get swept up into the system, and plug in with an integrative functional practitioner who can help you stop it, reverse it, so you don't ever find yourself in the situation that I did. So IV gene is fabulous. So let's say you get a score and it's 19, you can do integrative therapies, test again in 6 months or a year, and you want your score to be going down. If your score jumps up, you know you're not doing enough. We need to find some more things that are going to stop that cancer growth.
Okay, excellent. So that brings me to another test that our community is very aware of, the so-called grease test, or the RGCC test.
Yes.
Now, tell us what exactly that measures in the blood.
Okay. Now that's a completely different mechanism. That test is very different. It's the only test that tests for the circulating stem cells.
Not tumor cells.
Confused.
Yeah,
not the tumor cells, because they're both in the blood.
Right.
And only about 2 to 5% of the total volume of cancer cells are the stem cells. Because RGCC is, they're very concerned with stem cells, because those are the ones that hold the DNA to go out, and they're the ones that signal and starting new tumors.
Right.
So they want to find the substances that will kill stem cells. We have a lot of things that will kill cancer. A lot of the chemo drugs kill cancer, but many of them are also shown to stimulate stem cell growth. So even with people who just need to do traditional therapy, because there are people that if you told them don't do what their doctor down at the Big Cancer Institute said, they would probably not make it, because their emotional, they're keyed into that.
Yeah, their belief is that this is going to help me. Yes.
Is into that. So I would tell them, get the RGCC and then find which natural substances, find some growth inhibitors that work for your cancer, so you can balance out the effects of the therapy that you're doing. So that test is very different. It will test for natural substances. It will tell you which chemo drugs, which targeted therapies, and you still have to do it, because every 6 months, if you're in therapy, those cancer cells are smart. They're going to mutate, and they're going to find a way around what you're doing. But that test, my count was 14.2 after chemotherapy.
Wow.
Because I thought I was cancer-free. But then I saw this woman, Dr. B, and I said, wait a minute, do I have a target on my back or what?
Wow.
So I went to the RGCC location in Dallas, and they drew my blood, and I was shocked. And then to make the story worse, I went back to, I'd already fired 2 oncologists, and he sent me to a new one, because I said, I fired them both. I'm going to tell everyone, you can fire your doctor.
Yes.
It is absolutely fine. It's your right. At least right now in the United States, you can still fire your doctor. So I went to him, and I said, I have this 14.2. And he says, well, you need to be back on chemo. And I thought to myself, why would I go back to a therapy that failed me?
Mm-hmm.
And then
produces more resistant stem cells.
Yes, exactly. So I jumped in and I did everything on my test. I was in a sauna. I was doing IV vitamin C. I was taking nutrients. And I want to warn people, you have to be very careful with the nutritional recommendations on RGCC, that you use them correctly. You don't want to, like, here I have, this is my indole carbinol that I take, and I've got my genistein from Germany, and my aromatin 8, which is a natural hormone blocker. You want to rotate those every couple of months, so that you don't get insulin, so you don't get a resistance.
Right.
And it works beautifully when you rotate them. So don't ever try and do this by yourself. Get a licensed person who knows how to interpret the test and can guide you through. It's really very simple when you have that type of help.
That's right. That's right. And then make sure that you take the substances that are specifically tested. So, a quercetin from one company versus another may not work.
Right.
So make sure that the recommended quercetin.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. They even tell you what brand. So there's so much that can be done. So RGCC it has a whole plethora of information. It'll even tell you if heat shock proteins are negative. And if they are, that means a sauna is great for you. You're sensitive to heat. So, and if you have, this is a funny story. I had lymph nodes removed, and after about 2, maybe 4 years post-cancer, my right arm started to get a little puffy. And I thought, Lord, why is this happening to me? Why is my arm swelling after 4 years? And it was just minor, but it was very sensitive. And I was praying about it a lot. And then I heard the word sauna. And I went, oh my goodness, it was my sauna. So now what I do, and this is really silly, if y'all can picture me, I have one of those little saunas. It's a chair, and I sit in it, and it zips up around my neck. So I just put my arm out and I zip it up around under my armpit through my neck, and I keep my right arm out. I've had no problems.
Oh,
so no excuse for not using the sauna, ladies.
There you go. There you go. You find a way. Exactly.
Yes.
Oh, and there's another relatively new test that is seems to be more based on traditional research. It's called the Vie Desktop breast test.
Mhm.
Can you tell us
Yes.
about that?
Now that is kind of cool. It is. So let's pretend you go and you get your mammogram. Even though I'm not recommending that, but a lot of women, that's still what most people are doing. So
Right.
you get the mammogram and then the phone rings and you get the call that it's unclear and they send you back for a 3D imaging mammogram or something. And then it's not good and they want to do a biopsy. So this test gives you a rationale to say, pause, stop just a minute. It's a simple blood test. And it looks for, remember, we talked about those substances that the blood produces when cancer is present. It tests for those autoantibodies in the blood that are present when cancer is present. And it will tell you yes or no if there's cancer there. And it can actually stop you from having to do a biopsy. It's an amazing test because we know 70% of breast biopsies are usually negative. Now, with that, I want to say, anytime you have unhealthy breast tissue, you need to clear that up. So, because it is, to me, it's just a precursor for developing cancer. But if you don't have those autoantibodies in your system, then we don't want people putting holes in your breast. And I will tell you, I've had 3 people that I told to get it, and they're parts of these big hospital systems, and none of the doctors would order it.
Really?
So because they want to do the biopsy. That's their standard of care, is the biopsy. So find a functional medicine practitioner that will order that for you, because that may very well be a wonderful heads up that you've got some unhealthy breast tissue, but it's not cancerous yet. You can confirm it with any of these other tests. And it can just save you a lot of drama. And I tell ladies, if you're going to go get a biopsy and you've got a lump, just find a doctor who'll do the lumpectomy without the biopsy, and then just biopsy it after they take that out.
And do they have to have a mammogram before they get this done, or will a doctor
If your doctor,
order it?
no, if your doctor will order it, it's fine. The test is meant to go along with imaging, be it ultrasound or, what they're trying to do is stop the unnecessary breast biopsies.
Okay.
So
And doctors won't like that.
No, they say they have like a 99% efficacy or accuracy when compared with imaging. So I love that because, I got a biopsy. I could have said, stop, can we check my blood first?
Right.
And see if I have any of these substances.
And we know that biopsies, according to the John Wayne Cancer Center, when you penetrate that layer that encases the tumor, you're spilling millions of cells into the bloodstream. So, if you can avoid a biopsy, so much better. Now, so there's different types of circulating tumor cell tests. We talked a little bit about, RGCC. Is there another test that will measure for circulating tumor cells?
I could talk about Biocept. They will give you a count. It's actually a 2-part test. They give you a count and a enumeration, they call it, and then they also give you some markers. They can tell you your hormone status, but it's the test only tests for a limited amount of markers. So it is covered by insurance, which is fabulous. So if you think you have breast cancer, or you have breast cancer, and that test is negative on you, don't stop there and go, oh, my breast cancer is gone, because it may be that you just don't have one of those markers that they're testing for. But it finds lots and lots of people. But I always give that caution, because if you send it to RGCC, or you send some of your a little piece of tumor tissue or something over to Foundation Medicine, they do tests with blood, but it's all genomic profile. You could get the cancer cells, they get them out of the blood and they do a genomic profile. So there's lots of other ways to confirm yes or no. But if you come up positive in Biocept, it's a great test covered by insurance, and you can watch that enumeration go down.
Good, as you do your treatments. And the moral of the story is, don't rely just on one thing. This because when we hear of women, oh, their mammograms are clear, their thermograms are clear, do other things, do some of these tests, do ultrasounds, just to back up what you're doing. Right.
And let me say really quickly, back to RGCC, over the years, I've heard of several people that in very late stage cancer, their count was 0.
Yes.
And this is amazing because what we have learned is, and actually the information is out there on PubMed, is that the immune system in advanced cancer gets so messed up that where that white blood cell is supposed to come along and eat the cancer cell, when it goes to do that, it's a lymphocyte, they fuse and they make one new cell. So now we have the immune system playing a role in cancer metastasis. So now we have this rogue cell that has different markers that RGCC is not meant to pick up, or that any of these lab tests will not pick them up because it's a new cell. So that happens in very late stage cancers. But I was with Dr. Papasanturio last week. He was over from Greece, and he has almost solved that problem. He says he can catch 90% of them now. And he says in about a
Wow.
month, he will be able to pick up any of that. So cancer is very complicated, and it's a survival mechanism. Those cells don't want to die, and
Mhm.
they'll even use the immune system to escape that because it's part of us. So
That's
the thing we
right.
have to do is find it early, push that starting line back,
That's right.
and hopefully avoid all these therapies.
And why do you think people are hesitant about getting tested? I find sometimes women put their head in the sand, they're in denial. What have you seen with your business and practice?
Well, it's because of what we've been taught. We see commercials on television and they've got cancer surrounded, and it's all these people that are bald and with wigs, and and a lot of old people. But let me tell you, young people are really, the cancer is just, it's a pandemic now. We
Yes.
need to we need to redefine what cancer is. And yes, if we keep letting it go for 7 to 10 years before we tell people they have it, we're not going to make a change. If we push the starting line back, use these tests, find it early, get into integrative therapy, we can stop it. And then we never have to use those harsh tools. It's all our psyche. We have to redefine what we think. And that's a really hard thing to do. And that's why I'm so excited a national publisher picked up my book, and it's going to help me get the story out, because it's unnecessary. We have the tools right now to
Yes.
decrease the number of cancer diagnoses right now.
I
And
know.
I've interviewed all, in my cancer-free university, I interviewed all
Yes.
the labs. I've interviewed all the doctors on integrative therapies. I just, this morning I watched an interview with Dr. Khan out of Canada on the low dose naltrexone and DCA therapy. And I just love it. I'm learning stuff every day.
It's amazing. Yes, it's amazing. There's so much information outside the box of traditional medicine. Um,
Sure.
Let's see, I had a question for you. Oh, yes. We know we're starting to understand more and more about cancer and how it's more of a metabolic disease.
Right.
Can you
Right.
touch on that a little bit? It's not, we understand more that it's not genetic, like we've been
Right.
taught to believe over decades, but we're understanding that
Right.
it's more metabolic. So what exactly
Right.
does that mean?
Metabolic is just the way the cell produces energy. And
Mm-hmm.
we know that, a healthy cell uses your food and oxygen and good fats for energy, but a cancer cell, it skips steps in the Krebs cycle, from what I understand, and
Mm-hmm.
it just, metabolizes sugar. So I'm actually kind of doing a ketogenic diet, and I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to show y'all one of my favorite little keto bars. It is
Okay.
so
Keto
delicious.
crave. Okay.
Yes, it's called Keto Crave.
Okay.
And actually, I'll show you, this little box here is $40. There's
Oh,
12 bars in
wow.
there,
Okay.
but it has 16 grams of fat with the cacao and the MCT oil, and only 2 grams of sugar. And anyway,
Wow.
I love them. So, and the body can escape any method that we throw at it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the ketogenic diet will stress your cells by having a high fat diet, because that mitochondria will start burning the fats um, in the healthy cells, and the cancer cells will kind of starve them of sugar.
Right.
So, and if you can't do a ketogenic diet, then just do a low carb diet.
Mm-hmm. I did hardcore ketogenic diet for 6 months, and my
Uh-huh.
blood lipids were off the chart. So I have
Uh-huh.
those genetic SNPs that prevent me from really breaking down fats properly.
Oh,
So I had
wow.
to really modify it. I mean, I still
Right.
do a little
Right.
bit of MCT oil, but I couldn't do
Yeah.
hardcore. And trust me, I did it like to
Wow.
the T, 20,
I
30
bet you
grams of
did.
carbs and
Yeah.
lots of
Yeah.
fats. And it was
Yeah.
tough, but I'm glad I did it. Learned a lot,
Yeah.
but it's not,
Yeah. Well,
you have to be careful. Make sure you
right.
monitor your
Yeah.
lipids.
Right. Don't ever do anything like this on your own. That's why
Right.
you need a licensed expert that can help you. I know when I eat the fat, man, I have so much joy. I know it's from the Holy Spirit as well, but it's just my brain is fed.
Yes,
It's
yes,
just,
makes a big
I could,
difference.
yeah, it's amazing how the body's works when we give it the right things. I
Yes,
was at a restaurant yesterday and I said, what kind of salad dressings, oils in this salad dressing? And they came back and said olive oil, but then it was, it was cut with canola. So I
canola.
was like,
Right. Exactly.
women,
Yeah, just bring
anyway.
me the olive oil, and hopefully it is real
Yeah.
olive oil. Well,
Right,
tell us a
right.
little bit about your cancer-free university. I understand that you have a special gift for our listeners.
I do, and actually, I have a free download that's called "Living Cancer Free Made Simple," and it's about 50 pages. And
Wow.
I think I sent it to you. I don't know if there's a
Yes.
place they can download it on your website, but it's great. It's just some really good information that maybe you could, if you find someone with cancer and they're hesitant to learn about integrative care, it just gives them an overview, questions to ask their radiologists, their oncologists. Um, I kind of go through what the standard therapies are and what they mean and how we can overcome them a little in a bit. But if you get that, there's going to be a coupon code in there, and it'll say Dr. V 50. So I have been for the last year and a half interviewing all the labs. I interviewed Mike Knoll with Biocept, the CEO. I've interviewed people with RGCC, people with Foundation Medicine, everywhere. It's over 70 interviews, and it's online on demand. There's questions at the end of each little interview to help test your knowledge, but I'm giving that for 50% off if you use that code on the payment screen, which makes it like $270. And
Wow.
you can't walk into one of these doctor's offices for that price. I
Exactly.
mean, one consult. If you want to know what Jonathan Stegall does, or Jurgen Winkler, or Dr. Forsyth does at his clinic,
Or
you just
Dr.
pull up his
V.
interview. Or Dr. V, and Dr. V is in there as well. Yes, and
Yeah,
you
just
can,
kidding.
and it's just a resource. And I'd love to give it all away for free, but we've got so much money in the production time.
Yes,
But it's
yeah,
online on demand, and you can literally have a friend over that's newly diagnosed and say, hey, watch this interview, because you might very well save their life. And we just
absolutely.
have to be sensitive to people's feelings and let them know that we love them, whatever they choose, but we want to share the knowledge.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of sharing the knowledge, you've been on the Truth About Cancer, the Tripping Over the Truth Metabolism, the Cancer Retreat, Cancer Control Society Conference. You've been a speaker at a lot of conferences, and the information that you share is really, really life-saving and so important. And we met actually, where did we meet? San Diego at
Yes,
a, you
yes,
had
and
just come
that
out with
conference,
your first book.
yes, I was on a cruise on a ship, and I got an email from my publisher. I was just a little small self-publishing guy helping me, and he said, "Hey, they want you to speak at this conference." And I said, "I don't even have the book yet," and he said, "I'll have some shipped there." And so that is this is a divine thing that the book came out, and I got to start. I didn't even have a PowerPoint. I
Yeah,
just went and
yeah.
talked. So
It
that's
was,
where we met. But
that's
yeah,
right.
but I've gotten better, and I even like to test people's knowledge with, this substance helps against this gene marker and with this pathway. And so I'm just learning every day, and
Yeah, yeah.
it's just such a fun thing. I tell people I know doctors and I know the A team. So
Okay.
you're part of the A team. You're part of the
Okay.
A team.
Well, thanks. Thanks. Well, it's been a pleasure. I'm so glad that our paths crossed, and I
Yes.
really respect and honor all the great work that you're doing. You're touching the lives of so many people with your information and saving lives, I'm sure. So thank you so much for your time today,
Oh,
Jenny.
and to you as well. God bless you and everybody listening.
Thank
Be
you.
in, be in good health.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.